The twin suns of Vaethra blazed high above the city of crystal towers. Their light poured down on the arena of stars, a place where warriors from across the galaxy came to prove their strength. The arena itself was massive, built from black stone that had survived thousands of battles. Its walls were carved with the names of champions who had once stood victorious, and its sands were stained by the memories of countless duels. The stands were full. Aliens of many races filled every seat, their voices rising in a roar that echoed across the dome. Some had wings, others scales. Some glowed faintly like living stars, but all of them had gathered for the same purpose, to see who was the strongest. At the highest balcony, sitting on a throne made of silver and blue crystal, was Emperor Vaedrus, ruler of Vaethra. His eyes were sharp and cold, watching every fighter below as if they were pieces in a game he controlled. Beside him stood his daughter, Princess Serenia, tall and graceful with shining armor plates woven into her ceremonial dress. She was known as the Warrior Princess, a skilled fighter in her own right, trained since childhood. Yet even she felt the excitement of the day. Today's battle was rumored to be unusual. Whispers had spread across the city. An outsider, a strange being, had entered the arena. Many said he was fragile, weaker than any true warrior. Others laughed and called him a fool for even stepping into the sands of Vaethra's greatest battlefield. Then the gates opened. Out stepped Captain Elias Kane, a man of Earth. He wore no armor, only a torn shirt and rough trousers. His hands were bare, his body marked with scars from older fights. To the alien crowd he looked unimpressive. Too small, too soft. No natural armor, no glowing eyes, no claws or fangs. Murmurs of amusement rippled through the stands. Some aliens laughed openly. "Is this a joke?" one lizard-like spectator hissed. "The Emperor sends a prey animal against real warriors?" Another mocked. Even Serenia frowned. She had fought trained soldiers, beasts of iron, and even challengers from other star systems. But this human looked out of place. She leaned slightly toward her father. "Why bring him here, father? He will not last even a breath." The Emperor's lips curved into a cold smile. "Because, daughter, the people crave entertainment, and nothing entertains more than hopeless struggle." The gong thundered across the arena, silencing the crowd. From the opposite gate, the challenger appeared, a reptilian gladiator, 3 times the size of the human, with green armored scales and 2 plasma blades crackling in his claws. His name was Korath, a champion of 12 victories feared across Vaethra. The crowd roared his name. "Korath! Korath! Korath!" Elias did not flinch. He stood with steady eyes, hands clenched into fists. No weapon, no shield. Only his body. Serenia felt her breath catch. Something about his posture was strange. Not pride, not arrogance, but calm determination. As though he had been in many battles before. As though he understood that fear was wasted energy. The fight began. Korath charged with a deafening roar, blades flashing. The human did not run. He moved with quick steps, rolling under the first strike, dust rising behind him. The plasma blade sliced the air where his head had been a second ago. The crowd gasped. Elias countered with a strike to Korath's ribs. His bare fist slammed against the scales with a dull crack. The reptilian warrior grunted but did not fall. Yet the crowd grew quieter. The human had not been cut down in the first blow. He had resisted. Serenia leaned forward unconsciously. Her golden eyes locked on the human. "Strange," she whispered, though no one heard. "He does not fight like prey." The battle raged on. Korath struck again and again, each attack heavy enough to crush stone. But Elias slipped past them with speed and instinct. His body moved as if it had learned long ago to survive against impossible odds. Every strike he threw was aimed at weak points, joints, throat, stomach. He could not match the alien's strength, but he fought with precision. The arena, once filled with laughter, had fallen nearly silent. Every movement of the human drew wide eyes. Every dodge seemed impossible. Every punch landed with a will that defied reason. And up on the balcony, Princess Serenia found herself whispering words she did not plan to speak. "I wish he was my husband." Her voice was soft, almost lost in the sound of the battle, but in her heart, the words burned. She had seen countless warriors before, yet never one who fought barehanded against death itself and did not yield. This human was different. Far below, Elias Kane straightened, blood on his knuckles, dust on his face. Across from him, Korath staggered, disbelief shining in his reptilian eyes. The fight was far from over. but already history was being written in the arena of stars. The crowd's roar shook the arena walls as the fight pressed on. Korath, the reptilian gladiator, slashed his glowing plasma blades through the air, each swing bright as lightning. Dust and sparks flew as his strikes cut into the black stone floor, but Elias Kane did not falter. He ducked, rolled, and twisted his body with movements too quick for the eye to follow. He had no weapons, no armor, yet he fought with something more powerful, instinct and willpower. The aliens in the stands shouted in disbelief. "How is he still alive?" one cried. "No creature can last this long against Korath," shouted another. Their voices carried confusion, surprise, and something else. Awe. High on the balcony, Princess Serenya's eyes never left the human. Her hands gripped the railing tightly, her heart beating faster with every second. She had seen battles all her life. She had seen warriors fall with full armor and great weapons. But this man, this fragile-looking outsider, stood unarmed against one of Vaethra's greatest champions. Korath growled in frustration, his reptilian eyes burning. With a sudden leap, he struck downward with both plasma blades. The sand exploded where Elias had stood, but the human was gone. He had slipped to the side, then launched himself upward, his fist driving into Korath's jaw with a force that cracked bone. The massive gladiator stumbled back, blood dripping from his scaled mouth. The arena gasped. Never before had anyone seen a bare-handed warrior make a champion bleed. Elias did not smile, did not celebrate. He only tightened his fists again, his breathing heavy but steady. To him this was not sport. It was survival. It was life. Korath roared in rage, charging again with reckless fury. His blades cut arcs of light through the air. Elias barely escaped, each dodge closer than the last. The heat of the plasma seared his skin, the blades missing him by inches. His muscles burned, his lungs ached, but he refused to stop. Serenya whispered to herself, her voice lost in the storm of battle. He fights like a man who has known pain before. He fights like one who refuses to die. The crowd, once mocking, now cheered wildly. Some shouted Korath's name, but many began to shout another. "Human! Human! Human!" The sound reached Elias's ears. He did not understand their language fully, but he understood the tone. For the first time, they were not laughing at him. They were watching him with respect. The Emperor, however, remained cold. His sharp gaze studied the human like one might study a puzzle. He leaned back on his throne and muttered, "Interesting, but useless. A spark will still burn out." Back in the arena, Korath unleashed his fury. He swung his left blade, forcing Elias to dive backward, then followed with his right. The glowing edge grazed Elias's arm, leaving a searing burn. Pain shot through his body, but he gritted his teeth and stood firm. The crowd gasped again. Blood and smoke rose from his wound, but the human did not fall. Instead, he stepped forward. He closed the distance so quickly that Korath had no time to swing again. Elias's fists struck in rapid succession, rib, throat, then stomach. The sound of cracking scales echoed. Korath staggered, dropping to one knee, gasping for air. His blades flickered as his grip weakened. The arena fell silent for a moment. Could it be possible? Could the human actually win? Elias stood tall, sweat pouring down his face, dust coating his skin. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes remained sharp and unyielding. He was not just fighting a gladiator. He was fighting for something deeper, for his freedom, for his pride, for the right to be seen as more than fragile. Princess Serenya's heart raced. She could not stop the words that escaped her lips once again. "I wish he was my husband." This time her whisper carried a tone of wonder, not just curiosity. She saw in him a strength that no alien weapon or armor could give, a strength born from a fire within. Korath tried one last desperate attack, swinging wildly. Elias stepped inside the blow and drove his fist straight into the gladiator's chest. The massive warrior collapsed with a thunderous crash, the sand trembling beneath his weight. His plasma blades fell, their glow fading into silence. For a moment, the arena was utterly still. No one breathed. No one spoke. Then the silence broke into thunder. The stands erupted, the cheers of thousands shaking the air. They shouted the name of the victor, their voices rising as one. Human! 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 Elias did not raise his hands in victory. He simply stood there, breathing hard, his knuckles bloody, his eyes steady. He had survived. He had won. On the balcony, Emperor Vaedrus narrowed his eyes, displeased by the outcome. Yet beside him, Serenya's gaze burned with something new: admiration, respect, and a spark of hope. The human had come with nothing but his fists, and with them he had shaken the entire empire. The night after the battle, the city of Vaethra was alive with noise. Taverns glowed with strange lights and alien voices filled the streets. Everywhere people talked about the same thing: the human who fought barehanded and defeated the great champion Korath. Merchants painted his image on banners, and children pretended to throw punches in the dust, shouting, "Who man, who man?" Some called him a miracle, others a monster, but none could deny what they had seen. In the royal palace, however, silence ruled. The grand hall was built from shining crystal, lit by torches of blue fire. At the center of the long table sat Emperor Vaedrus, his face cold and unreadable. His generals and advisors sat on either side, whispering to one another, their voices sharp with unease. "The people cheer for him," one general said. "If this human continues, he may become more than entertainment. He may become an idea." "An idea is more dangerous than any weapon," another added. The emperor raised his hand, silencing them all. His deep voice echoed through the hall. "He is nothing but a man of flesh. Strong today, weak tomorrow. When he refuses to fight again, the crowd will forget him." But at the far end of the table sat Princess Serenya, listening quietly. Her eyes lowered, hiding the storm within. Outwardly, she kept her calm posture, but inside she remembered every detail of the fight. The way Elias had stood unshaken, the way he had endured pain, the way he had turned mockery into respect. Her father saw him as a tool. The generals saw him as a threat. But Serenya saw something more, something she had never seen in any warrior of her people. That night, when the palace grew quiet and the guards patrolled the halls, Serenya made a choice. She slipped away from her chambers, wearing a cloak of dark silk to hide her armor. She moved through hidden passages known only to the royal family until she reached the lower dungeons. The air there was heavy and damp. The stone walls glistened with moisture, and the sound of chains echoed in the distance. Guards stood at the entrance, but Serenya's authority was absolute. None dared question why their princess had come. At the end of the corridor, behind heavy iron bars, sat Elias Kane. His arms rested on his knees, his head slightly bowed. His hands were bruised, his knuckles still raw from battle. Yet when he lifted his gaze to meet hers, his eyes held no defeat. For a moment, Serenya simply stood there, studying him. Then she spoke, her voice steady but soft. "You fought like no one I have ever seen." "Why?" Elias tilted his head as if surprised by her question. His voice, though tired, was calm. "Because there was no other choice. Where I come from, we fight to survive. Not for crowns, not for glory, just to keep living another day." Serenya's heart tightened at his words. She had been raised in wealth and strength, trained to command armies, yet she realized she had never known the kind of struggle he described. To fight not for honor or power, but simply to endure. She stepped closer to the bars. "My father believes you are nothing but a spectacle. He thinks the people will forget you once you fall." Elias's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "Then he doesn't understand humans. We don't give up, not until the very end." The princess felt a shiver at his words. It was not arrogance. It was truth. For the first time, she understood why her heart had whispered those forbidden words in the arena. "I wish he was my husband." Not because of his strength, but because of the fire within him. A noise echoed down the corridor, footsteps. Serenya quickly pulled her cloak tighter and turned away. She could not be discovered here, speaking with a prisoner. As she walked back toward the stairs, she whispered one last thought to herself. "This human, he is dangerous. Not to me, but to the Empire." Back in his cell, Elias leaned against the wall, staring into the shadows. He did not know what the princess truly thought of him, but he knew something had changed in her eyes. Above, in the great palace, the Emperor plotted his next command. He would not allow a mere outsider to stir his empire. He would bend the human to his will or break him. But in the quiet of her chambers, Princess Serenya stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in her life, she questioned her father's rule, and in the silence of her heart she knew a single truth. The human was not just a fighter. He was a spark, and sparks had the power to light fires that no empire could ever control. The morning sun had barely risen over the crystalline towers of Vaethra when Elias Kane was dragged from his cell. His wrists were bound in cold, heavy chains, the iron biting into his skin. The corridors echoed with his footsteps as the guards led him to the arena of stars once more. Today's crowd was different. The excitement of yesterday had grown into expectation. Thousands had gathered, murmuring and whispering about the human who had bested Korath. They wanted more, another spectacle. Yet Elias had no desire to fight for their amusement. He had survived yesterday. Today he would survive for his own sake. At the arena gates, Emperor Vedras awaited, his silver and blue robes shining under the twin suns. His expression was a mix of irritation and calculation. "You have impressed no one but yourself, human," the Emperor said coldly. "Fight again or face punishment. Refuse and you will see the true meaning of chains." Elias lifted his chin, meeting the Emperor's gaze without fear. "I do not fight for crowns or for your entertainment," he said firmly. "I fight only for my life and for the right to choose my own path." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Choice is a luxury you do not have here. You will fight, or you will be forgotten in the dungeons." From her balcony above, Princess Sirenia watched silently. Her heart ached at the sight of the chains around Elias's wrists. She could not ignore the injustice. Yet she knew that openly intervening would only worsen his punishment. The crowd's roar swelled as Elias was brought to the center of the arena. 3 new challengers awaited him. Aliens taller and stronger than Korath, armed with energy whips, sharp claws, and shields of gleaming metal. Their eyes glimmered with excitement, eager to crush the human who dared defy their empire. Elias studied them, measuring their movements and anticipating their attacks. His body was tired, his muscles sore from yesterday, but his mind was sharp. He knew he could not rely on strength alone. He would have to rely on speed, strategy, and the instincts that had carried him through countless battles on Earth. The gong sounded, echoing like thunder across the arena. The first challenger lunged, a creature with 4 arms and a shield that could block almost any blow. Elias dodged, rolling beneath the swinging arms, and struck a precise punch to the creature's chest. The sound of cracking metal echoed as the shield bent under his force. The other 2 rushed forward, their claws aimed at his head and torso. Elias moved with quick, calculated steps, striking, dodging, and weaving between their attacks. The sand beneath him rose like smoke with every twist and roll. The crowd was silent, mesmerized. Not a single alien had ever fought like this before. A hum, and using agility, precision, and relentless courage instead of weapons or armor. High above, Sirenia's eyes widened with admiration. Her heart beat fast, and for a moment she forgot her royal duties. She saw not a prisoner, not a stranger, but a man whose spirit burned brighter than any armor or weapon. One of the challengers swung a whip that hissed through the air, sparks flying as it struck the stone floor. Elias leapt, catching the whip mid-air and twisting it against his enemy. The alien fell, stunned and defeated. The final opponent roared, a massive beast with claws like blades. Elias met its charge head-on, moving inside its reach, striking its legs and chest with precise blows. The creature staggered, then fell to the sand with a heavy crash. For the first time, the arena erupted, not in mockery, not in anger, but in pure awe. Humans had been underestimated across the galaxy, yet here was one standing victorious, bare-handed, unarmed, unstoppable. Princess Sirenia could not contain her emotions any longer. She rose from her seat and shouted to the Emperor, "This man is no slave. He fights for honor, for life, for himself. He deserves respect, not chains." The Emperor's face twisted in rage, his hands tightening on the railing. "Do you dare speak against me, daughter?" "I dare," she said, her voice steady, "because he is not weak, and because the people need hope, something stronger than fear." The crowd began cheering, their voices rising in unison. "Human, human, human." The sound shook the arena, filling every corner with disbelief and wonder. Elias, breathing heavily, looked up at Sirenia. For a moment their eyes met. No words were spoken, yet he understood. She believed in him. She saw him not as a mere fighter, but as a symbol of resilience and courage. The Emperor turned away, furious, but even he could not stop the admiration spreading across his empire. As Elias was led back to his cell that evening, the chains no longer felt heavy. They could bind his wrists, but they could not bind his spirit. For the first time, he felt the stirrings of something bigger than survival, something that could ignite change across the stars, and somewhere high above. In the quiet of her chambers, Princess Sirenia whispered again, softly but firmly, Do not give up, Elias Kane. Humanity has a fire they cannot see yet. And you carry it. The arena was silent before the final battle. The sun had climbed high, reflecting off the black stone and crystal walls. Thousands of eyes watched with bated breath. Elias Kane stood in the center, bare-handed, his fists wrapped in old cloth to protect his knuckles. His body was tired, muscles aching from the previous fights, but his spirit was unbroken. Across from him, 3 of the Empire's elite champions waited. Each was taller, stronger, and more terrifying than the last. Their armor shimmered with energy fields, their weapons crackled with deadly power. They had been chosen to crush the human who had defied Korath, the great champion, just days ago. The Emperor's voice boomed across the arena. Human, fight or die. Show the Empire your true place. Elias did not flinch. He did not shout or protest. He only breathed deeply and focused on the task ahead. He understood that this was not merely a battle for survival. It was a battle for respect, for the recognition of humanity's strength. The first champion lunged, swinging a whip that burned like lightning. Elias rolled forward, feeling the heat rush past him. He struck with his fist at the opponent's legs, making the alien stumble. Before it could recover, he leapt upward, delivering a solid punch to its chest. Sparks flew as the energy shield faltered. The creature roared in shock and pain. The second opponent came at him with dual blades, moving faster than Elias had expected. But the human moved with instinct, ducking, dodging, and twisting. He grabbed one of the blades mid-swing and slammed it into the alien's side. The creature collapsed, stunned, unable to continue. The third and largest champion towered above Elias. Its claws were sharper than any steel, its roar shaking the arena walls. Elias knew this was the final test. He had no weapons, no armor, but he had something more: human willpower and adaptability. The giant lunged, claws striking down like a storm. Elias ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding each strike. He studied the creature's movements carefully, learning patterns from instinct and observation. When it paused for a moment, preparing for a final attack, Elias struck. His fist hit the creature's chest with every ounce of strength, and then another and another, until the massive opponent staggered and fell. The arena was silent for a heartbeat. Then the crowd erupted. Cheers, shouts, and cries of awe filled the air. Human, human, human. The sound shook every corner of the arena. Aliens of all kinds stared in disbelief. They had never seen such power, such courage, such resilience without weapons. High above, Princess Serenia stood, her hands gripping the railing. Her heart raced as she shouted above the noise. This man is no slave. He is a warrior worthy of our respect. Even the Emperor's face turned pale. His eyes darted around, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The people's admiration for Elias had grown beyond his command. They no longer saw him as a human, fragile and weak. They saw him as a symbol, a being capable of endurance, courage, and hope. Elias looked around the arena. He did not see enemies anymore. He saw opportunity. He had proven that strength was not only in weapons, not only in size, but in spirit. Every punch, every dodge, every act of determination had shown the galaxy that humans were more than fragile creatures. They were survivors, fighters, and dreamers. Princess Serenia descended the balcony and approached the arena gates. Without hesitation, she extended her hand toward Elias. You have done more than fight, she said softly but firmly. You have shown the Empire the heart of humanity. It is time to stand not as a prisoner but as a warrior among us. Elias hesitated for a moment, then took her hand. It was a small gesture, but it carried a promise, hope, respect, and understanding between worlds. The Emperor, realizing that he could not contain the admiration of his people, clenched his fists in frustration, but even he could not deny the truth. Humanity had earned its place in Vaethra's history. One human, bare-handed, had done what countless aliens could not. He had ignited a spark of admiration that could never be extinguished. The crowd chanted endlessly. Aliens of all kinds raised their voices in recognition of Elias Kane. Children mimicked his movements, warriors whispered his name, and elders shook their heads in amazement. Humans, once thought weak and fragile, were now honored across the galaxy. And in the quiet of her chambers that night, Princess Serenia spoke again, her voice full of warmth and hope. Elias Kane, you carry the fire of your world, and that fire will light the way for all who come after you. Elias sat alone for a moment, looking at the stars above Vaethra. He thought of Earth, of the struggles he had endured, and of everything that had brought him to this place. He realized that it was not size, not strength, not weapons that had made him victorious. It was human spirit, courage, and determination. The spark of humanity had been seen. It had been felt. And across the stars it would never be forgotten. For the first time, Elias smiled. Not just as a survivor, but as a symbol of all that humans could be. The Empire had witnessed something extraordinary that day, and Princess Serenia, standing proudly beside him, knew that this was only the beginning. The human had won. The galaxy had noticed, and humanity had earned its place among the stars.